assisting our 6-year-old Maya with her spelling homework. My mother's voice, usually a monotone of veiled judgment, chimed with an almost disquieting brightness. You and Clara deserve a night to yourselves. When's your anniversary? The question nearly made me drop the phone. In a decade and more of marriage, my parents had never once volunteered to babysit. Not with Maya's birth. Not when our twins, Leo and Finn, arrived 3 years later. Not for emergencies, not for the rare date night, not even for those desperate hours when we craved an extra moment of sleep. This Saturday, I replied, a thread of caution weaving through my words. But mother, you always maintained that 3 children were an impossible handful. Nonsense. We are their grandparents. It's high time we truly stepped into that role. I found Clara in the kitchen, meticulously preparing tomorrow's lunchboxes. You won't believe this, I started, the words tumbling out. My parents want to babysit for our anniversary. She froze, the peanut butter knife suspended midair. Your parents? The very same who arrived 2 hours late to Maya's birthday, claiming they'd forgotten and entirely missed Leo and Finn's kindergarten graduation. The absolute same. Clara's expression tightened with skepticism. She had been wounded too often by my parents' profound indifference toward our children. While her parents drove 3 hours every month just to visit, mine resided a mere 20 minutes away and could barely manage an appearance for holidays. Perhaps they're genuinely trying to change, I offered, my voice tinged with a desperate hope I didn't truly feel. She sighed. Perhaps. God knows the children deserve to have all their grandparents actively involved. Saturday descended upon us with a surprising swiftness. I'd secured reservations at the quaint Italian bistro where we'd shared our very first date. Clara donned the sapphire blue dress I adored. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, we resembled the couple we once were, before mortgage statements and endless hockey practices had utterly consumed our lives. My parents arrived promptly at 6, an uncharacteristic punctuality that struck me as another unsettling first. My father carried a compact overnight bag. My mother clutched a Tupperware container of cookies. Homemade, she announced, her tone falsely proud, though I instantly recognized the faint outline of the grocery store packaging she'd hastily transferred them from. The kids are so excited, I offered, a half-truth. Maya had indeed been thrilled. The twins, however, were far more engrossed in their video games. Bedtime is 8 for Leo and Finn, 8:30 for Maya, Clara explained calmly. Emergency contacts are magnetized to the fridge. Maya's asthma inhaler is in the medicine cabinet, just in case, though she hasn't had an attack in months. We raised 2 children, my mother stated, her smile thin and knowing. We know precisely what we're doing. As we gathered our belongings, I noticed my father lingering oddly by their overnight bag in the hallway. When I passed, he subtly shifted, deliberately obstructing my view. Everything all right, Dad? I inquired. Fine. Just excited to spend time with the grandkids, he mumbled, yet beads of sweat glistened on his forehead despite the cool interior of our home. Clara descended the stairs, adjusting a delicate earring. Her gaze landed on the bag, and a warm smile bloomed on her face. Oh, you brought overnight things? How utterly thoughtful. We won't be too late, though. She reached for the bag, her intention clear, simply being helpful, likely planning to move it to the guest room. My father lunged forward. No, but Clara's nimble fingers had already found the zipper. Her face drained of all color, turning ashen. Then a piercing scream tore from her throat. Get the children. Call 911. I rushed to her side and peered inside. My blood instantly turned to ice. Coiled rope, rolls of heavy-duty duct tape, multiple bottles of children's Benadryl, potent adult sedatives with their prescription labels savagely torn off, a handgun I never even knew my father possessed, and most horrifying of all, 3 small, child-sized suitcases of vibrant pink for Maya and 2 matching blues for the boys. What the hell is this? My voice emerged as a strangled croak. My mother's face had transformed from its usual grandmotherly sweetness into something chillingly cold and calculating. It's not what it seems, darling, truly. Clara was already herding our bewildered children upstairs. Because it looks precisely like kidnapping supplies, she hissed, her voice sharp with terror. My father positioned himself between us and the staircase. Just calm down. Let us explain. Explain? I retorted, pulling out my phone. You'll explain to the police. My mother's hand clamped onto my wrist. Don't be foolish, Ethan. You have no concept of what is truly at stake here. I yanked my arm free, frantically dialing 911. My parents are in my house. With weapons and kidnapping supplies. Please, send help immediately. Sir, did you say your parents? The dispatcher's voice crackled. Yes. They were supposed to babysit, but they've... Just please, hurry. My father lunged toward the stairs. I moved instinctively, blocking his path, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. Don't even think about it. You don't understand, he pleaded, desperation in his eyes. We're trying to save them. Save them from what? I demanded. From you, my mother spat, venom lacing her words. From this life. From her. She gestured wildly upstairs, where I knew Clara was frantically barricading herself and the children in our master bedroom. You're insane. I roared. Are we? My mother's eyes were now truly wild, gleaming with a terrifying fanaticism. You never call. You never visit. You're poisoning their minds against us. We invited you to every school event, every birthday. Pity invites, my father roared, his face contorted. While her parents get to play the real grandparents, you turn our grandchildren into strangers. The distant wail of sirens pierced the tense silence. My mother's face crumpled, the mask of fury dissolving into something almost childlike. We just wanted time with them, she whimpered, real time, without you controlling every single detail. So you were going to kidnap them? I challenged, disbelief warring with horror. We were going to take them on a trip, my father insisted desperately. Show them there's a whole world beyond this miserable prison you've built. Then bring them back? With sedatives? With a gun? I pressed, pointing at the bag. The medicine was just in case they got a little upset, he stammered. The gun? Your mother insisted, he muttered. For protection. Protection from what? From anyone who tried to stop us from being grandparents, my mother shrieked, her voice cracking. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Everyone, hands where we can see them. My parents were swiftly ordered to the ground. I watched, a numb, detached observer, as my father, the man who had taught me to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, was roughly handcuffed on my own living room floor. The bag, I managed to articulate to the officers, my voice hoarse. Check their bag. An officer meticulously photographed every item. A field kit test confirmed the children's Benadryl had been laced with a much stronger sedative. The pills were, as suspected, prescription sedatives, enough to incapacitate adults, let alone young children. Where exactly were you planning to take them? The detective inquired during questioning. My parents exchanged a silent, conspiratorial glance. Florida, my mother finally admitted, her voice flat. We have a condo there. We just wanted a week, maybe 2. Without telling us? I retorted, my anger now a blazing inferno. You were going to let us believe our children were missing? We left a note, my father interjected quietly. In the bag. Explaining everything. The detective retrieved it, a precisely folded piece of paper in my mother's elegant, careful script. We're taking what's ours. You've had them long enough. Don't try to find us. We'll return them when they understand who their real family is. Clara descended the stairs once the children were settled with a movie and snacks, a fragile veneer of normalcy barely masking the tremors of her rage. How long had you been planning this? She demanded, her voice low and dangerous. My mother lifted her chin, a defiant glint in her eyes. Since Maya's birthday. When you relegated us to the back table. When her other grandparents were allowed to help with the cake, while we merely watched like strangers. You were 2 hours late. Clara exploded, her voice echoing. The party was almost over. And you've never once asked to help with anything. Because you never truly wanted us there, my father snarled. We could see it. The way you look at us, as if we're not good enough. You never tried. I bellowed. You never called to check on them. Never asked about their lives. Never. We're their grandparents, my mother shrieked, cutting me off. We shouldn't have to beg. The detective interrupted, his voice cutting through the escalating chaos. Mr. and Mrs. Hayward, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, unlawful possession of firearms, and possession of controlled substances without a valid prescription. As they were led away, my mother turned back, her eyes brimming with what she likely believed was sorrow. We just wanted to love them, she murmured. No, Clara stated, her voice quiet but firm. You wanted to own them. The subsequent investigation unearthed a horrifying depth of premeditation. They had been meticulously planning for months. Fabricated passports for the children, complete with new names. Money had been slowly siphoned into an untraceable offshore account. The Florida condo was a fabrication. Instead, they had rented a secluded house in Mexico, paying 6 months upfront in cash. They had even meticulously researched homeschooling laws in countries lacking extradition treaties and, chillingly, Googled how to make children forget their parents. They were going to steal our babies, Clara sobbed that night, long after the children were asleep. They were going to vanish with them. The trial was an agonizing ordeal. My parents' defense attorney attempted to portray them as loving, desperate grandparents pushed to extreme measures by their cruel, ungrateful children. But the evidence against them was unequivocally overwhelming. The months of premeditation, the potent sedatives, the meticulously forged documents. My mother ultimately broke down on the stand. I just wanted to be their grandmother, she wailed. Not an afterthought, not an obligation, their real grandmother. And you believed kidnapping them was the answer, the prosecutor pressed, his voice unwavering. It wasn't kidnapping, she insisted, her voice rising to a shrill crescendo. It was rescue. From a son who forgot where he came from. Who chose his wife's family over his own. My father was even worse, cold, unrepentant. A man has a right to his legacy, he declared, his gaze defiant. Those children carry my name, my blood. I will not apologize for trying to claim what is rightfully mine. Both were sentenced to 15 years in prison, eligible for parole in 7 with good behavior. The hardest part, by far, was explaining it to the children. Maya, at 6, understood far more than we'd anticipated. Grandma and Grandpa were going to take us away, she stated, her small voice trembling. They were confused, I said carefully, my words chosen with agonizing precision. They made bad choices because they were sad. But they would have brought us back, right? Leo asked, his brow furrowed with a child's innocent hope. Clara and I exchanged a loaded glance. The Mexico house rental was for 6 months. The money they'd meticulously saved would have lasted years. The chilling research on their computer about starting over with new identities in non-extradition countries screamed that they never planned to bring our children home. We don't know, sweetheart, Clara admitted gently. But you're safe now. That is all that truly matters. The twins, being 5, bounced back with the resilience only young children possess. Maya, however, struggled profoundly. Nightmares about being snatched from her bed plagued her sleep. She began a ritual of meticulously checking that our doors were locked each night. Why didn't they just ask to spend more time with us? She whispered one night, her voice barely audible. I don't know, baby, I replied, pulling her closer. Sometimes, adults make things impossibly complicated when they could be so simple. My brother, Daniel, called after the sentencing. We hadn't spoken in years. He'd fled across the country partly to escape the suffocating expectations of our parents. I'm sorry, he said, his voice quiet, but I'm not surprised. Do you remember when we were children? The way Mother would declare we belonged to her? The way Father referred to us as his possessions? I did remember. Suddenly, a flood of small, unsettling details I had long normalized surged back, the simmering fury when I'd chosen a college too far from home. The explosive rage when I'd married Clara instead of the suitable girl they'd picked. The chilling way they'd spoken of my children as their second chance. Thank God Clara found that bag, Daniel breathed, his voice raw. Thank God indeed. 20 more minutes and they would have been gone. My parents would have drugged my children into oblivion and vanished into the night, taking them with them. The fabricated passports listed Maya as Catherine, Leo as Michael, and Finn as David. New names for new lives, lives as mere possessions of grandparents who loved the idea of them more than their actual, vibrant reality. It has been 2 years since that night. Our children are thriving. Maya continues therapy, but she is healing beautifully. Leo and Finn, thankfully, barely retain any memory of the terror. Clara's parents have since moved closer, filling the grandparental void with genuine affection and unwavering support, a stark contrast to the twisted obsession of my own. Sometimes, letters arrive from prison. I no longer open them. The first few were pages upon pages of bitter blame and warped justification. We could have given them everything, they'd written. You stole our second chance. A real son would understand. But I am a real son. One who chose to protect his children from the very people who created him. One who finally recognized that DNA does not confer ownership. One who understands that love is not about possession, it is about selfless presence. My parents had 12 years to be grandparents. 12 years of birthdays and holidays, of mundane Tuesday afternoons filled with simple joys. They chose absence and bitter resentment instead. Ultimately, they chose crime. The infamous overnight bag now resides in evidence lockup somewhere. 3 child-sized suitcases, never filled, never used. Sedatives that never tainted my children's bloodstream. A gun that was, thankfully, never fired. Stark proof that the very people who are meant to protect you can become the most profound danger you need protecting from. Sometimes, I still find myself wondering what horrors would have unfolded if Clara hadn't instinctively reached for that bag. If she had been less helpful, less keenly observant. Would we have returned home to an empty house and a chilling note? Would we have spent years, perhaps decades, searching for our vanished children while my parents played out their twisted fantasy of a do-over parenting? I will never truly know. Because my wife saw imminent danger where I saw only a minor inconvenience. She screamed when I might have merely shrugged. She saved our children from grandparents who fundamentally confused love with ownership, who believed that their own perceived disappointment justified a federal crime of unimaginable scale. The children no longer inquire about them. We have diligently filled their lives with people who love them unconditionally and properly, aunts, uncles, cherished friends who have become chosen family. People who understand that children are not possessions to be stolen, but sacred gifts to be cherished beyond measure. My parents had offered to babysit for our anniversary. What they really offered was a meticulously planned nightmare, cloaked in the guise of help. But they profoundly underestimated us. They underestimated Clara's fierce instincts. They underestimated how fiercely we, as parents, would protect our children from anyone who dared to harm them. Especially from the very people who should have protected me in the same unwavering way. Did I go too far by testifying against my own parents? Some extended family members certainly think so. They still send Christmas cards addressed solely to the children, as if Clara and I have ceased to exist. They whisper of forgiveness and second chances. But I have witnessed what their second chance truly looked like. It came with coiled rope and potent drugs, with forged plane tickets to a country where my children would have become literal prisoners of grandparents who had already proven, irrevocably, that they would prioritize their own twisted desires above our children's fundamental needs. So no, I did not go too far. If anything, I didn't go far enough for years, willfully ignoring blatant red flags and constantly fabricating excuses. It took a duffel bag brimming with kidnapping supplies to finally shatter my naive perception and see my parents clearly, not as flawed but loving family, but as profound dangers against whom my children desperately needed protection. Our anniversary dinner never happened that night. Instead, we ordered pizza and simply held our children close, profoundly grateful for Clara's incredible quick thinking and the rapid police response that kept our family whole. Now, we commemorate our anniversary differently. Not with fancy dinners or exclusive date nights, but with a cherished family day. All 5 of us together, safe, whole, and acutely aware of how swiftly that could have changed. How a single, misplaced moment of trust in the wrong people could have irrevocably shattered everything we hold dear. My parents are eligible for parole in 5 more years. They'll be in their 70s by then, possibly harmless. Possibly not. It does not matter. They will never see my children again. Never have the chance to finish the monstrous plan they began that night. Because that is what parents do. We protect our children. Even from grandparents who willfully forget that love means letting go, not holding captive. Especially from those who would drug innocent children into compliance and audaciously call it care. Always from anyone who believes DNA is a deed of ownership instead of a sacred bond of trust. A trust they shattered the instant they zipped up that horrific bag.